Good morning, I'm Wendy Burke, and this is the CBC Morning Report for Tuesday, October 12th. In our top story, in recognition of the spiraling COVID-19 cases and deaths resulting from the ongoing surge, Prime Minister Mayor Amor Motley says government will now move to the next level of the COVID-19 fight with the implementation of safe zones. Speaking at a news conference at Ilara Court last evening, the Prime Minister said there's a need to create safe environments.
We need to be able to have places where persons are either vaccinated or recently tested. Vaccinated or recently tested. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that you are safe and not in a position to put each other at risk. 142,000 Barbadians, 543 Barbadians have spoken with their feet, and they've spoken with their arms, and they've said, look, we believe that our personal responsibility is to take care of ourselves, and in so doing, what we're asking the rest of us to do is to recognize that if you are not prepared to take that test, then you would have to be prepared to be tested to assure the rest of us that as we mix, whether it is at work, whether it is in places of entertainment, whether it is in places of worship, whether it is in restaurants or hotels, that anywhere where people will frequently be, that there must be a safe zone.
Despite a recent call by the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association for mandatory vaccinations in the tourism and hospitality sector, Prime Minister Motley reiterated government is not mandating vaccines, but it will mandate safe zones.
It is one that is born of us having had now almost 60% of eligible Barbadians in that position. As I said, when we get to the higher numbers of 70% of persons who are eligible, then we will start to look at adjustments to the further hours of restriction of movement.
Other points coming out of the Prime Minister's address were that the mobile vaccination team will be going into homes of people who are not mobile, as well as those with chronic NCDs that are outpatients of the QEH. There will also be lines in place at the Alexandra and Princess Margaret schools and the Eugene Gibson Polyclinic.
Those three clinics will have special signs for persons who are over 70 who can be expedited and brought without having to wait in the normal line. And similarly, a special line for those persons who have chronic NCDs, heart problems, serious diabetic. You're attending the QEH as an outpatient, or you're attending the polyclinic as a serious outpatient. There'll be a separate line for you too at those three clinics. And we're doing this because we're satisfied that we can boost the numbers and that we can get to that 70% of the eligible population and even beyond that, because that's the floor, that's the minimum we want to reach before we start to remove the restrictions. But in the ideal world, we want to get at least to 75% of the eligible population.
Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic addressed what he called two game changers in Barbados' COVID-19 situation. One is the increase in positive patients who were very sick. That has forced government to make some changes to the isolation facilities. He says work is already in progress to refit the tertiary facility at Harrison Point to upgrade it to a secondary facility to treat more of the sick patients. The other game changer involved the rising number of young people contracting the virus.
This is not something that we were seeing previous to this surge, and what I would like to continue to urge all parents and guardians and wards, family, that we have a duty and a responsibility to try to protect our children, especially at this time. And I would like to urge all persons to ensure that those who are old enough to take the vaccine, that they do so, because it is in their interest, is in the interest of the educational system in terms of face-to-face classes resuming in this country, and it is also in the national interests.
Next on CBC Morning Report, updates on the COVID-19 pandemic. There were 214 new COVID-19 positive cases detected by the Bastos Santos Public Health Laboratory. These new cases included 94 males and 120 females. Of these, 55 people are under the age of 18. There are now 565 people in isolation facilities and 2,088 in home isolation. In terms of vaccinations, 142,182 people have received first doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. Additionally, 112,162 people have had their second dose and are now fully vaccinated. AstraZeneca's antibody cocktail against COVID-19, which has proven to work as a preventative shot in the non-infected, has also shown to save lives and prevent severe disease when given as treatment within a week of first symptoms.
Trials of the drug show that it kept people from developing severe symptoms. The cocktail reduced death by 50% in patients who'd been symptomatic for up to 7 days. It was tested on people at high risk of developing severe reactions to the virus.
CARE International, the global confederation fighting poverty in 104 countries, says there's a COVID vaccine gender imbalance in some parts of the world.
In some countries, just one woman is being vaccinated for every 3 men. Its research points out India, where only 36% of people who've received jabs are women, and South Sudan, where it's 26%. The report points to several reasons, including women being prevented from accessing vaccines, but also says women can be less likely to trust that the vaccines are safe.
Yeah, this is a really stark report that's revealing some really profound gender imbalances in terms of who's getting access to the COVID vaccine. And I think if we step back, we have to look at, unfortunately, the story of who's getting COVID vaccines globally is increasingly a story of inequity across the board, right? So we know that 78% of all COVID vaccines have been delivered in wealthy countries. 42.3% of people who've received at least one dose. That's the total number of people across the globe who've received one dose. But if we look at the numbers for poor countries, the disparity is very stark. Only 2.5% of people in low-income countries have received one dose. And as the report shows, these inequities are not just due to disparities based on wealth or geography, but we're seeing these really persistent gender disparities. You shared some really stark data that we're seeing from South Sudan, where 70% of people who are testing positive for COVID are women, but women are only receiving 26% of vaccines. And if we think about why this is, honestly, those of us who've been working on health equity for years are not that surprised by this, unfortunately, because we know in the context of health systems where resources are scarce, often it's people who experience social marginalization and discrimination who are served last. What we're seeing is that even before the COVID pandemic, in many places, women experience pretty profound barriers to accessing health information and health services.
It's time now for a preview of what's coming up on Morning Barbados. And for that, we say good morning to Pearson Fitzherbert Bowen.
Ooh, Fitzherbert, okay. Good morning to Wendy. I'll be very nice to you, Felicia Berg. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, that's soft and warm.
I told you it was going to be like that this morning, but
I'll be nice tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a different day, you better believe it. So look out for that. So thank you so much for joining us. And folks, coming up at 6:30 this morning, we'll continue our delve through education and looking at new ways of learning and teaching for national development. So look out for that. We'll also today be taking a look at that project Pioneering Caribbean Women's Justice Project. And who are these women? What's that project about? How were they selected? We'll be joined by His Honor, the Honored Justice Andrew Burgess from the Caribbean Court of Appeal, and we'll be looking at that as well. Plus, today, in our look at pediatric care, asthma. There's a season for that, and 'tis the season for bouts of asthma. How do we recognize those signs when they present themselves? Our pediatrician will talk us through that and a whole lot more at 6:30. Wendy, back to you.
Yes, why thank you, Pearson, and we'll be awaiting those reports. We'll take another break and return with more news. Serious efforts are on at a national level to develop a Barbados black belly sheep industry. Not only is the breed being threatened by depleting stock, but some farmers in the industry have reported losses as high as $10,000 per quarter. Dr. Leroy McLean, a consultant in the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, is here with us to discuss the work and threats to the industry. Good morning to you, Dr. McLean.
Good morning, Wendy.
Paint for us the picture of the current state of the industry.
Well, right now we have a situation where we are trying to determine the size of the population because we haven't had a census for quite some time now. But we are in the process of finding the farmers who have black belly sheep and who are keen on getting into the industry. But like you said in your introduction, we have some very serious problems in that we have things like dog attacks, which are causing some serious problems for farmers. And as you correctly said, there was one farmer who said that over a period of 3 months, he lost 35 sheep, valued at approximately $300 each. So that is posing a significant problem for us. But we are trying to develop the industry because currently Barbados imports a very large quantity of meat from sheep, totaling some $14 million a year in the pre-pandemic years. So it is believed that we can significantly reduce this amount of money which we are spending on imports, and also that we could, in doing so, improve our food security.
What about the issue of feedlots? I remember some years ago they were trying to boost the black belly sheep population, and a number of feedlots have been set up. Are programs like that still existent, or is it a situation where the farmers are basically trying to breed the animals themselves as opposed to having the genetic material brought in to be able to do the inseminations?
Well, we are in the process of setting up one feedlot at the Animal Nutrition Unit, and this would be basically a model for which the private sector can take up, and they can scale up or down depending on the resources. And the idea of the feedlot is that small farmers would not have to rear a lamb from birth to the point of slaughter, but at about 12 weeks or so, 10 to 12 weeks, that lamb could be transferred to the feedlot where through intensive husbandry practices, it can now reach a point for slaughter in about 7 months. So instead of a farmer having to wait for over a year to get a lamb of reasonable size, we can now do it in about 7 months using the feedlot. So we're in the process of actually having a building constructed, just about completed, where we would be setting up the first feedlot that we have had in Barbados for a while.
You mentioned that we've been counting sheep. What's the level that we wish to push that population at, and how easy is it going to be based on the gestation period of a sheep?
Well, we estimate that it would take about 65,000 to slaughtered per year to replace fully replace what is being imported currently, and that is not beyond us because currently it's estimated that we have about 14,000 on the island, and probably about 9 to 10,000 of those would be used, which can get into a breeding program. And once they've started that, and given that the black belly sheep very often gives you 2 or even 3 lambs in one lambing, and the gestation period is just around 5 months, we believe that we can ramp up the population to the point where we can actually reach that goal in about 3 years or so. We should be able to reach the point where we can have total replacement of the imported lamb.
Okay, you're speaking about a 3-year time frame. In that period, is there going to be any assistance given to the farmers along the way to ensure their continued interest in the development of the sheep industry?
Well, there are already incentives for farmers through the services section of the Ministry of Agriculture. There are incentives for farmers who are developing pastures. There are incentives for security systems, which we hope that more farmers would take up. And we are trying to put in place now an incentive for farmers who will be purchasing ewes for breeding. So there are incentives in place which farmers should really get in touch with the ministry to find out exactly what is available. And but I'm sure that, in fact, we're also going to the point where we're looking at how can we produce more feed from local inputs, because one of the biggest problems that farmers face is the cost of feed. So we're looking to see how we can utilize local resources for the production of animal feeds, and along with all of the other current incentives that we have for farmers. Okay. We also provide reduced prices for the breeding stock.
Okay, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. McLean, and I wish you all the best in repopulating Barbados' sheep industry. That's Dr. Leroy McLean, consultant with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. A quarterly report on all prisoners on remand has been established. The revelation came from Chief Justice Sir Patterson Cheltenham as he addressed the virtual opening of the legal year 2021 to 2022. Sir Patterson says the information will be provided electronically by the Superintendent of Prisons.
With immediate effect, and utilizing the powers vested in me under the warrant of general jail delivery, the Superintendent of Prisons will be required to provide to the head of the Criminal Division or any judge designated by me every 3 months a full report on the status of remand prisoners. This process will be done electronically and is designed to address the troubling and unsettling concerns that result in persons being incarcerated for long periods with no known likelihood of a trial date within a reasonable time as contemplated by our Constitution.
The international community must find ways to inject cash directly into Afghanistan's economy to avert its total collapse as a growing humanitarian crisis impacts half the population. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who was speaking to reporters at the UN headquarters, underscored the urgent need for steps to ease the economic and humanitarian crises that have grown since the Taliban took power as the 20-year U.S. military intervention ended.
Humanitarian assistance saves lives, but it will not solve the problem if the economy of Afghanistan collapses. We also need to make sure we do everything we can to prevent the economic collapse of the country. Already before the Taliban takeover in August, Afghanistan's fragile economy, which has been kept afloat by foreign aid over the past 20 years, suffered from the impact of drought and COVID. Right now, with assets frozen and development aid paused, the economy is breaking down. Banks are closing and essential services such as healthcare have been suspended in many places. We need to find ways to make the economy breathe again. And this can be done without violating international laws or compromising principles. We must seek ways to create the conditions that would allow Afghan professionals and civil servants to continue working to serve the Afghan population. I urge the world to take action and inject liquidity into the Afghan economy to avoid collapse.
The G20 are going to be very important with regard to this. They are the richest countries on earth, and he says the situation is very, very serious now in Afghanistan. It can't be solved by aid alone, and there's a real fear of a total collapse in the economy. What is clear, though, is what the Taliban want, which is Afghanistan's assets, about $10 billion to be unfrozen. That's not going to happen. But you heard the Secretary-General say there's a way of doing this without violating international law and compromising principles. Well, what they've got in mind is setting up trust funds. They probably use the World Bank or the UN Development Programme. In fact, there's one fund already that the UNDP is funding to do with healthcare in Afghanistan. The idea then is the international community re-injects money into the economy by putting money into those trust funds, and those funds then pay for vital supplies and for salaries, for example, of healthcare workers. That way the money doesn't go to the Taliban, but it does go back into the economy. It helps those who are doing vital work in Afghanistan and avoids that economic collapse. That's certainly the UN's plan. It's now got to see if it can get the G20 to sign on to it.
In sports, Windies spinner Sunil Narine played a crucial hand with both bat and ball as his Kolkata Knight Riders defeated the Royal Challengers Bangalore by 4 wickets in the Indian Premier League eliminator yesterday. The off-spinner took 4 for 21 to restrict RCB to 138 for 7 off their 20 overs. Player of the match, Narayan then smashed 26 off 15 balls as KKR reached 139 for 6 with 2 balls to spare despite a late wobble in Sharjah. Here are the highlights. KKR will now face Delhi Capitals in tomorrow's second qualifier for a spot in the final. The winner of that tie will play Chennai Super Kings on Friday for the 2020 IPL title. It's time now for a look at our weather picture. In Barbados right now, the temperature stands at 26.7 degrees Celsius and it's cloudy with some haze. However, it feels like 32 degrees. The humidity stands at 79% and the barometric pressure at 1012.6 millibars. The winds are coming from the southeast at 27 miles per hour. Low tide will be at 1:54 p.m. and high tide at 8:58 a.m. with a second high tide at 8:16 p.m. The seas are moderate in open water with swells ranging from 1.5 to 2 meters and increasing. Today is expected to be mostly cloudy to overcast with the occasional brief scattered light to moderate showers and a low chance of isolated thunderstorms. Tonight will be a mix of clear skies and clouds with a few brief scattered light showers. In the Lesser Antilles, today and tonight, partly cloudy to cloudy with occasional scattered light to moderate showers and a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms. Here's now a look at the picture in our international cities. And that was today's morning report. Our next newscast will be on TV8 at Newsday at noon. We now join Pearson Fitzherbert Bowen for Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning.
And a very good morning to you as well. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. I'm Pearson Fitzherbert Bowen this morning, and I welcome you to Morning Barbados for today, Tuesday, October the 12th, 2021. And all of you here in Barbados, thank you so much every morning for waking up to turn us on. We're happy to have you company. And for those of you across the world, in whatever time zone you exist, on our YouTube channel or our Facebook streams, thank you for joining us on Morning Barbados. Always interact with us on our Morning Barbados Facebook page. We'd be happy to hear from you every time. Or you can drop us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.bb. MORNIN Barbados @cbc.bb. Now coming up today, Tuesday, Thornwood will be working us out this morning as we continue our fitness regimes. We'd also today in our session on real estate be taking a look at some of those real estate terms that we get so confused about, like your listing agent, pre-qualification, under contract as is, due diligence. Those kinds of terms, what do they all mean in the world of real estate, and how can we as ordinary citizens become far more acquainted with it? Also today, we'll be sharing with you another one of those opportunities to win with the breast screening program. Remember, we're looking all week long to spot the pink ribbon and identifying exactly where it is. Today is Tuesday. I hope you have your paper from yesterday's, because every single day there's going to be a new location, and I'd like very much every single day for you to write it down, note each of those locations, all 5 of them, and at the end of the week you submit them, okay? So make sure you have your piece of paper handy. Also today, asthma. It's the season for asthma, and certainly we'd be connecting with our pediatrician, Dr. Gillian Birchwood, to look at how do we identify those signs of asthma and what do we do when that panic button strikes. Let's get started, however, by reimagining education and looking a little bit more about how we build for national development. Joining us so far this morning is Randy Eastman, who's a teacher, who's also part of the planning committee for Education Month, and Akil Eiffel, a principal of the Eiffel School. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you so much for coming through again, and hopefully we'll be joined by Dr. Denise Charles, who is an education officer with the Ministry of Education. Now, Akil, let's start with you, because as I hinted last time, I want to look at different abilities and being able to create a space where people have different interests in education. How does our education system mold itself to respond to those? At your school, if a child presents with a learning deficiency or has a passion for different areas other than the strict math and English and so forth, how do you accommodate it? How do you identify that, and how do you accommodate it?
Okay, good morning, everyone. That's a very good question. So the first thing usually we try to do in the interview phase is to find out what are some of the things a child may like. Now, sometimes you're not always able to get the answer right away. you would realize that maybe you are in physical education and you realize the student catches the ball a particular way, they hit the ball a particular way, or they may say something. And that is why teachers speaking to students is very important, especially parents as well. You need to find out what it is that your child likes to do. And one of the things that we say all the time is exposure. You can't know something if you don't expose the child to it. So in our program, we have a wide range of things we do at the Eiffel School. We try to see if the child likes any sort of physical activity, if they like theater, music, dance, that sort of stuff. And then you expose them to it. Now, let's take the average student. When I was at school, I wasn't much of a musician, but Randy was a boss musician, right? And I liked the arts, and I had a teacher that could, help to groom me towards the arts. If we don't have the specialists we had students, for example, who wanted to play chess. I am not a chess player. So we brought in a chess coach, Antonio. Antonio worked with the students. They did some of the competitions. The same thing happened with drafts. And when it comes to business, those are things that, I can help with, or maybe if it's the arts or something like that. So first thing you have to do is to expose. If you're reimagining education, children at various ages, at different levels, let's say you're in A plus B, you should be able to do a certain set of skills, maybe 6 skills, or be exposed to them. Then you get to class 2, you're exposed to a different set of skills. So by the time you're ready to leave primary school, you would have had an idea for what you like, what you want to do, what you want to try, and then you go into secondary school, you can continue that, or you can learn a new skill. So at our school, we exposure is the main thing, and if we can't have it from our source pool at the school, you just bring in somebody.
Indeed. And this somebody will be like a Randy Eastman who has a passion for creative arts as well. Randy, when this child comes to you, the child wants to be like everyone else. That's one step. The child also might have an interest in dance, music, whatever. But how do you get that child now? How do you, Randy, as a teacher, identify the child who is taking it a little bit more seriously than the others, and then create the space for that child to actually achieve what it's passionate about?
I think children actually develop naturally, and you have to allow for a creative space, whether it's music, dance, any discipline within the arts. You allow for an open space, you allow for an open forum, allow them to express themselves in whatever ways, because most times children who excel in the arts are capable in more than one area. And it's a case of allowing them to shine in that particular area, or all of them, as a matter of fact, allowing them to see the possibilities of a lucrative career within the arts, whether it be music, dance, drama, etc. You let them know that this is a possibility. You are showing exceptional skill in this particular area, and I do believe that you can make a lucrative living from it. And you chart a path. You say, hey, this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to have to qualify yourself further. You're going to have to get to understand the business of the arts, specifically if it's sports, education, whatever discipline it is, doesn't matter. The application is the same. Your qualifications, and then from there, establishing yourself as a business, understanding yourself as a brand, and further developing your craft in the particular area.
True. But at what stage in the primary level, for instance, do you have that conversation with a child who's very keen on doing such?
I think as early as possibly like 7 to 8 years old. I think children kind of have a feel for what they want to do. The career path may change along the way, but I don't see an issue with introducing basic jargon and terminology for the various disciplines that a child may show interest in. It is how you differ down the wording, how you differ down the technology, and explain it to them, explain the possibility of the scope, etc. So I would say from as early as 7 years old, 8 years old, children generally have a good understanding or a general understanding of where they want to go, and they're willing to get focused from it from that age.
Yes, she's late to class. Dr. Denise Charles, Education Officer. Dr. Charles, good morning to you. You are going to get 100 lines. I shall not be late again. Dr. Charles, good morning.
Technical glitch.
That's my excuse when I had my first detention too. It was a technical glitch. That's all right. But it's good to have you. We're looking at the opportunities through education, formal education, for children who express a little differently, who have a passion for the arts, or who have other learning deficiencies. And I want to look at that learning deficiency one with you, because there's a body of people, Down syndrome children, for instance, who cannot fit into traditional school, but who also can express in different ways. There are children who are blind, they're deaf, and they are somehow shunted away. Do you get the sense that the education system is crafted to fit them too?
Pearson, I think today we are definitely moving towards inclusive education, and this is something that hasn't just started, but really was the theme of our education from education reform back in 2000, the late 1990s to 2000, when we had quality education for all. And I think education jurisdictions the world over are definitely moving towards more inclusive school environments. But when you speak of children with challenges, there are a range of challenges that students may have. We have students with learning disabilities, we have students with behavioral disorders, we have students with emotional disorders, we have students with conduct disorders. And while we do have that wide spectrum of challenging behaviors from some students or learning deficiencies from some students, our education system has to continue to be able to configure itself so that all of the needs of our various constituents can be met. So as you rightfully said, there are special schools for students with hearing impairments, or those who are deaf, as they prefer to be called today, those with various levels of visual impairments, etc. But we all know that a child's intelligence or a child's ability to learn is not impacted by the fact that he or she may not be able to hear, or by the fact that he or she may not be able to see. And there are examples in our system where students with these challenges have been integrated in a regular school. I witnessed this myself when I was a teacher, where there were 2 or 3 students with hearing impairments who could not hear. Actually, they were deaf. And they had a special peripatetic teacher assigned to them who would sign for them right through from assembly to every single class. That teacher would accompany that child to the class. And we also know of the examples of those who were blind who went right through and were able to accomplish degrees, etc. So there are no limits really. I think it's just a matter of expanding what we currently do so that more and more students who have various challenges can access education. The access is there. It's just a matter of sometimes even changing the mindsets of those in the public, because people need to understand that having a particular impairment does not preclude you from understanding, or does not preclude you from making a valuable contribution to your nation. And at the level of what we would see as the regular school, within a classroom, one can have various numbers of challenges among students, but yet those students can be catered to because the teachers are trained to diversify instruction, and that is what we expect our teachers to be doing.
I'm so glad you mentioned all of that, because we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to look at assessment across the board and creating assessments where each child with different abilities can be equally assessed and have opportunities that are almost equal one with the other. We're going to take the break. When we come back, we'll look at that in just a moment here on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
60 minutes now to go to the hour of 7 o'clock. We're looking at education, reimagining it, teaching, learning for national development in the 21st century. With me is Education Officer Dr. Denise Charles, Akil Eiffel, who's the principal of the Eiffel School, and Randy Eastman, who is a peripatetic teacher, I hate that word, but he's a teacher with the Ministry of Education. When we broke, I wanted to continue by looking at assessment, because oftentimes it feels as though every child, regardless of its ability, does the same test. And I just wonder, first of all, Akil, how do you deal with testing and assessments at your school before I open it up to the others?
Okay, no problem. Let me just start by saying this is one of the most controversial topics you can ever talk about, because assessment is not something that, especially at a national level, that you can just please everybody. There will be a lot of people, that will not be happy with what you do, and obviously that is one of the reasons why you decided to open my own school, so you can do things a little differently. Assessment ranges. There's certain things you have to do, mandated obviously by the ministry. There are criterion reference tests, but we like to test our students too individually based on skill sets they have. So for example, I'm glad you started out by asking that too, because we're looking at going into journalism and mass communications in secondary school. Now, how are we going to assess the student who wants to be a host? And yes, Pearson, there are students that watch Mornin Barbados that want to be presenters and announcers. Some want to be DJs, some want to be radio hosts, etc. So how do you assess a student who's doing a program like that? Now, obviously, that's more of a practical subject. So you have to have some sort of practical assessment. Give them a miniature show to run, to do, grade it. But the most important thing is the criteria. And I think that sometimes in terms of what you're going to do, you have to look and see what is the objective. So we do a range of regular tests, standardized tests, get into class 3, class 4. But in secondary school, in our secondary program, is a little different. We have different tests. You have cricket. There are volleyball tests at the school where you have to be able to hit the ball, pass the ball, things like that. But I guess that is because of the sports background. And it will vary from school to school, but the ministry has a wide range of assessments that they use, and I know that Dr. Charles can speak a lot on that.
Well, come first to Randy. Randy, because you deal with the arts, and oftentimes people just cast an eyebrow at the arts. But I know there's a lot of work that has already been done to move the arts forward and assessing people and creating opportunities for them to excel. So is it a fair playing ground for those who are passionate about the arts?
That's a funny question to answer, Pearson. And whole answer, I'll say that persons who are geared towards the arts or have an affinity towards the arts are, I don't know, they express or they show what we call multiple intelligences. To say whether there's a fair playing field, like I said, it's difficult to answer. However, what I will say is that the teachers and the educators within the area of the arts ensure that those students are assessed in those particular intelligences fairly. You have cumulative assessments. You have the advent of the CVQ program now, which caters to things like theater arts, music production, as Akil mentioned, being a host, DJing. When it was at Parkinson Memorial School, some of the teachers, their term, the things that I would do there, the alternate curriculum. Right now we have Mr. Ian Webster, Myron Clark, and Sheldon Hope incorporating DJing into the curriculum. So I really think it's at a school level, it's at a curriculum level within the school, and based on what that particular school offers to students. I think the more we expose students to education or varying topics across the education sphere, you give them a better chance and a better understanding, a better opportunity to make choices for what career they want to choose. And the more exposure, again, the greater opportunity for choices.
I think these children exist in a fantastic age. I didn't have all of these opportunities in my youth, but Dr. Charles, assessment from the Ministry of Education's perspective now, do you get the sense that, go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to say that assessment is critical and germane to teaching. We cannot teach without assessing. And sometimes when we think of assessment, we're only thinking of the big day tests. But we need to understand that formative assessment is a critical part of the teacher's practice as an educator. You have to assess what you have taught so that you can determine where you need to go next or whether you need to reteach a particular concept. So every discipline involves assessing the student. and you're assessing the student on a day-to-day basis, you're assessing the student at the end of a unit, you must be able to say, well, I moved this student or I moved this class from point A to point B to point C. And if you're dissatisfied with where the student has gone, then you need to go over it as a teacher. So this is critical and really a basic fundamental of teaching. What I can say is that in every domain, including the arts, students must be assessed to be able to judge their skills, whether or not they are singing the way you want them to sing, because voice is also an instrument, whether they're playing the instrument in the way that you decided that the competency that you want to assess, whether they're drawing or dancing or acting in a particular way. So regardless of the subject matter, all students require assessment, and then there are different types of assessment. So while you will do the formative assessment as a matter of course in terms of your teaching, then there's a type of diagnostic test that you would do to assess where a student may be. Maybe students who are entering a school for the first time, or they're entering a form level for the first time, the teachers would want to evaluate where that child is so that they know best how to plan for them. That is also a different type of assessment, because you want to see where the deficits may be, where the challenges may be, and where you may need to apply some more attention in terms of how you plan for learning. So assessment is really critical to education across the system, and I think we need to understand that teachers have it within their power to really diversify what they do in class. When I was a teacher, I taught English, and when I was a teacher, I would be assessing students in writing, and they would write for me. They would formally write. When I give them a topic, they would also do something called free writing, where they were allowed to explore and write on whatever they wanted to write. They would supplement their writing with drawings. I would have them sing and discuss a theme from literature, etc. So I applied a number of strategies to assist my students, because I recognized that there were multiple learning styles within my class. So it is not just about recognizing multiple intelligences in terms of how a student is quote unquote smart, but also it is about understanding the various learning styles and applying that to how we teach, and also utilizing that within our assessments. So even within the context of formative assessment, if a teacher can allow a child to get up and speak and share how they feel about a particular theme or how they feel about a particular poem, there's nothing wrong with stopping that teacher from assigning a grade to an oral test. Yes, at the level of CXC and at the level of the promotion exam, the exams will go back to the traditional format, but they will be buttressed by what has been done at the level of the classroom. And when the child is experiencing success at the level of the class, then that success is likely to transfer into a more formal type of test. And then when the teacher is evaluating the child's performance at the end of the year, he or she has both of those types of assessment to look at.
I agree with you on the oral test, but there are some students who will not be able to do the traditional tests. And I can use what my oh Lord, I didn't want to braid up. I have a godson who has Down syndrome. And obviously, he is not going to be the one who is going to sit on there and write for you every answer on a piece of paper. But his level of comprehension astounds me. And his ability to be able to respond correctly amazes me. And I'm just saying, for a child like that, it feels sometimes as though the system is so unfair, because the level of assessment given to him is going to be, in my opinion, personal again, unfair.
Well, Pearson, there are adjustments given for students who have been diagnosed and have what we call been statemented. If there is an official letter from an educational psychologist or a doctor which suggests that this child has a specific learning deficiency, then that child is allowed extra time in national exams, and that includes the common entrance, that includes CXC or any other examining body. That child is allowed extra time to be able to work on his or her questions. So that's standard, and that should also happen at the level of the school, where for promotion exams, which happen yearly, the students are allowed extra time. But as I said, when we take the entire picture into consideration, where each child is concerned, and we're looking at the fact that each one matters, and we want to develop quality education for all, then that level of attention that you're speaking of must start at the level of the classroom. And we must not only see assessment as a formal test, because that is not all that is included when it comes to assessment in education. It is what the teacher does every single day, every single week, in terms of evaluating where the students that have been assigned to that teacher where they are going with respect to their learning.
Akila could feel
I
you wanted to jump in.
in.
See what I tell you?
Yeah, because Denny said something very important after the point that you made, and because she started teaching English, and I still teach English now, but when I started teaching students to read, and one of the most important things in reading is something called sub-vocalization, which is you hear yourself talk when you're speaking. It's impossible to read without hearing yourself talk. So one of the things to parents, to all those parents listening, one of the most important things you can do for your child is to encourage them to speak every single day, because you're not just building confidence. And when Pearson spoke about his godson that has Down syndrome, I remembered a student who had ADHD, and normally, you hear about the Ritalin and stuff, and this student was on a similar drug, and they would be very mute and quiet. But when you give them something to read, just to talk, just to hear a child want to speak or say something is so important. And I find sometimes parents, especially in this day and age, they do not encourage the children to speak. They allow them to be there. They have their tablets. They don't encourage them to talk. And one of the most important forms of communication comes down to oral communication. So allow your children to speak. Let your students talk. Let them engage you in conversation. The same way how we're here having a conversation. So much comprehension is done from just listening to others speak, and since a lot of students do not like to read, they like to watch movies, they like to discuss movies and games. So that's something that I do. I would tell the students, because I'm an Arsenal fan, I would say something, well, Barcelona is not all this, and the students would say, but sir, Arsenal win the trophies and stuff, and this way, okay, go on and write an essay telling me what makes Cristiano Ronaldo such a good player. And you would realize that some students may write it, some may want to talk about it, and the ones that talk about it, you really see the expression, the creativity, the energy, and it goes a long way into building the confidence of students, especially boys.
Yes. Man, she's on, Aki. You walk right into one of the areas they want to discuss as well. Development of confidence. This is so unfair.
Pearson,
Go ahead, Dr.
if
Charles.
I may add, I also want to say that we have a set of competent teachers. We have teachers who have been especially trained in special needs education, teachers who are able to bring those skills to the table with respect to how they approach teaching students with special needs, because that is a discussion in itself.
Yes.
And the way that we may teach a child within what we would term a mainstream school or a mainstream classroom of mixed ability would not be the same approach that we would use with students with particular special needs. So teachers obviously need to be exposed more, because we are seeing more and more students with learning challenges in the regular classroom. That is so. But we also need that there are a set of teachers who have been trained and continue to be trained with respect to special needs education, diversifying the types of approaches. Some of their approaches are extremely creative and extremely out of the box. And then there are different assistive technologies that they can utilize to help teach students with special needs. So I just wanted to make that point, that it isn't that a cookie cutter approach is going to be used or should be used with all students, but we are aware of the levels of training among our teachers, and some of them are doing an excellent job.
I could agree with you. Randy, you wanted to say something. Jump right in.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Dr. Charles was saying, but I think she came back and made that point, but also the need for additional assessment, not only in the classroom, but when you get home. Application of the knowledge that you would have learned within the class. I think parents have a responsibility as well to continue the education process at home, whether it be in mathematics, the application of basic functions, addition, subtraction, multiplication, counting change when you go to the shop, those kind of things. You have to ensure that you give that child the application process in real life. Whether if it's to do with interests, as Akil said, you find the interest of the child, whether it's football, gymnastics, athletics, pique the interest of the child by engaging them in that particular area. And as Dr. Charles said, within the classroom, in terms of children with special needs, we have a lot of extremely dedicated teachers, and something called differentiated learning. I know that is practiced within the classroom to ensure that the scope within the classroom or the diversity within the classroom is catered to in terms of the varying levels of cognition of the students within that class.
Well, you guys have settled my conscience, my mind a lot this morning as it relates to special needs and how we respond to them as well. So I feel a lot more confident that in the classroom, Michael is getting the very best of attention, indeed, because he's in regular school, but I just want to make sure that he too is a success, and that's what's most important to me. I'm being personal in this one, but I know for a lot of parents it's the same thing as well. We have to leave it there. We have a whole month. I hope you guys will make yourselves available again soon so we can continue, because this whole question of confidence, and I know we spoke about this last time as well, we're seeing children being a little shy, not speaking well, not being confident enough to speak into a microphone and espouse on something.
Especially
I want to know what they
experiencing.
I know.
We have to begin to look at our cultural practices where that is concerned.
See?
Because that is very much grounded in our culture.
And that's all part of education too. So we want to look at that next time we come around. All right, so listen out for the call. But thank you so much for joining us again this morning.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pierce.
Dr. Denise Charles, Akil Eiffel, and Randy Eastman. We're looking at education. We'll take a break here. When we come back, we're having much more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're a minute and a half after 7. Time for us to take a look at the news now. Here's Wendy Burke.
Prime Minister Mia Moore-Motley says government will now move to the next level of the COVID-19 fight with the implementation of safe zones. Speaking at a news conference at Ilara Court last evening, the Prime Minister said there's a need to create safe environments.
We need to be able to have places where persons are either vaccinated or recently tested. Vaccinated or recently tested. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that you are safe and not in a position to put each other at risk. 142,000 Barbadians, 543 Barbadians have spoken with their feet, and they've spoken with their arms, and they've said, look, we believe that our personal responsibility is to take care of ourselves, and in so doing, what we're asking the rest of us to do is to recognize that if you are not prepared to take that test, then you would have to be prepared to be tested to assure the rest of us that as we mix, whether it is at work, whether it is in places of entertainment, whether it is in places of worship, whether it is in restaurants or hotels, that anywhere where people will frequently be, that there must be a safe zone.
Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic addressed what he called 2 game changers in Barbados' COVID-19 situation. One is the increase in positive patients who were very sick. That has forced government to make some changes to the isolation facilities. He says work is already in progress to refit the tertiary facility at Harrison Point to upgrade it to a secondary facility to treat more of the sick patients. The other game changer involved a rising number of young people contracting the virus.
This is not something that we were seeing previous to this surge, and what they would like to continue to urge all parents and guardians and wards, family, that we have a duty and a responsibility to try to protect our children, especially at this time. And they would like to urge all persons to ensure that those who are old enough to take the vaccine, that they do so, because it is in their interest, is in the interest of the education system in terms of face-to-face classes resuming in this country, and it is also in the national interests.
There were 214 new COVID-19 positive cases detected by the Basto Santos Public Health Laboratory. These new cases included 94 males and 120 females. Of these, 55 people are under the age of 18. There are now 565 people in isolation facilities and 2,088 in home isolation. In terms of vaccinations, 142,182 people have received first doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. Additionally, 112,162 people have had their second dose and are now fully vaccinated. AstraZeneca's antibody cocktail against COVID-19, which has proven to work as a preventative shot in the non-infected, has also shown to save lives and prevent severe disease when given as a treatment within a week of first symptoms.
Trials of the drug show that it kept people from developing severe symptoms. The cocktail reduced death by 50% in patients who'd been symptomatic for up to 7 days. It was tested on people at high risk of developing severe reactions to the virus.
And that's a wrap for news. Now it's back over to Pearson Fitzherbert-Bowen for Morning Barbados.
Thank you, Felicia. Have yourself a good day indeed. 6 minutes after 7, folks, still to come. We invite you to spot the pink ribbon. But we'll take a break here and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Indeed, 9 minutes now after 7 o'clock. Remember, stay with us because a chance for you to spot the pink ribbon is coming up. But right now, it's time for today's Crumbs question of the day. So, 228-5562 or 228-5563, the only numbers to call to answer correctly today's Crumbs question of the day. Here it is. The flower fence, a decorative shrub cultivated in Barbados, is known as what? I can see Hans pepper your cheese on bread. We got in this morning. The flower fence, a decorative shrub cultivated in Barbados, is also known as what? 228-5562 or 228-5563 is education. It's education month. So the flower fence, a decorative shrub cultivated in Barbados, is known as what? Good morning to you. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Where are you watching us from?
St. Michael, Barbados.
St. Michael, Barbados. I'm also in St. Michael, Barbados. What's your answer for me today?
A flowered shrub. Is it a fern?
Don't ask questions. Give me an answer.
A fern.
A fern. And that's what it's called? It's known as a fern. A flower fence is known as a fern. That's what you're saying to me.
Flowered fence. Oh, dear.
Give her the sound effect. Give her the sound effect. You're wrong. Thank you for trying, though. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Come along. The fire fence, the flower fence, a decorative shrub cultivated in Barbados, is known as what? 228-5562 or 228-5563. Come on, you're going to win with Crumbs today. Remember, there's a Crumbs location very near to you. And Crumbs has a whole range of baked products. Absolutely tasty down to the last crumb. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Good. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
You're very welcome. And I'm well, thank you for asking. What parish are you in?
Christchurch.
Okay, what's your answer?
Is it the Pride of Barbados?
Don't ask me questions. You got to give me answers.
Pride of Barbados.
That's your final answer?
Yes, please.
Absolutely certain that's going to be your final answer?
Yes, please.
You better think again. I'm talking about the flower fence. Are you saying to me your answer is? Madam?
The Pride of Barbados. Don't go no further.
You're not changing?
No.
Well, you stand there, hold on to that. Where would you find such an answer from?
Well, it's part of the coat of arms.
Go ahead. And it's called flower fence.
Yes.
Talk to me. No. You can't tell me. I have never seen flower fence on our coat of arms yet. The words flower fence. The mystery thickens. So, where did you get this answer from? For real? Flower fence equaling Pride of Barbados.
Well, I come along with it, hearing as knowing it as Pride of Barbados. The old students call it flower fence.
For truth? Seriously? In Christchurch?
Yes.
Ma'am? What part of Christchurch are you?
Windy View.
Sorry?
Windy View, sir.
Windy View. Where's Windy View in relation to everywhere else? Give me a landmark. Is that near to, what do you call it there? Near the airport area?
No, Garfield Circle Ground.
Oh, Windy View is down there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you listened well to the old people, and so I guess they were right. You're absolutely right, ma'am. Flower fence is otherwise known as the Pride of Barbados. So you stay right there on the phone. Okay, what's your first name?
Shanice.
Shanice.
Yes.
All right, Shanice. You stay right there on the phone, Shanice. And we'll take some other details from you. She's right. Flower fence, Pride of Barbados. Well done. Okay, that's it for today's Crumbs question of the day. We'll take a break here, and we are coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So the looking glass is right there. Where is the pink ribbon? Get your pen, get your paper, get your eyes together. If you have to put on glasses, put them on. If you have to move nearer to your TV screen, put them on. If you have to move nearer to your computer screen or your tablet screen, get ready, because we're going to be spotting the pink ribbon right now. So where is the pink ribbon for today, Tuesday, October the 12th? Note the date. Tuesday, October the 12th. And where on God's green earth is this? Look, look. This is landmark number 2. Can you identify exactly where this is? Where is this? Look at that. Where could this possibly be? Take your time. Dwell on it just a little bit. This is landmark number 2 for today, Tuesday, the 12th of October. Note today's date, Tuesday, October the 12th. And then if you think you know where that landmark is, write that down next to today's date. Wow, you got me good. Is an arch. I see the brickwork. Where could this be? Landmark number 2. Of course, this is all week long. We ask you to keep watching to spot that pink ribbon. It's right there next to that landmark. So where is this? So here's what you're going to do. Write it down on your piece of paper. You would have had yesterday's landmark identified, today's landmark identified too, and hold it, because every day you're going to note it down on that piece of paper, and then you gather your information and you send an email. Look at that. That's where you send it. All of your answers will come to us via email to this email address on your screen. morninbarbados@cbc.bb. MorninBarbados, morninbarbados@cbc.bb. We'll give you till the end of the month to get all your entries in. You can enter as often as you like, but make sure you have each day in order, and with each day and date, please be sure to put that landmark that you've identified. So that was landmark number 2 for today, Tuesday. Yesterday we had one. Yesterday was the 11th, today Tuesday the 12th of October, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, so on and so forth, down to Friday. And each day we will share with you a different landmark, and your job, should you accept it, is to identify the landmark, spotting that pink ribbon and noting it all down, and then sending in your email to us by the end of the month. So keep watching and keep looking for that opportunity to win. We say a big thank you today to our partners in all of this. We have the Crane, Abed's, Stansfeld Scott, Emerald City, Carlton A1 Supermarkets, and Bougainvillea Beach Hotel. So those are our sponsors, and naturally you'll be winning something really fantastic. So keep watching every single day. I don't know when, neither do you, but you have to be before your TV screens, before your computer screens, watching for when that pink ribbon appears, and you spot it. Note it down day by day, and then at the end of the week you submit all of your entries. All right, one email with all, and you can send that email several times. This is all in association with the Barbados Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we thank them for their support of this. All right, we'll take a break right here, and we're coming back with more on Morning Barbados. We're heading into our pediatric care now and connecting with our doctor. Remember, get your first dose, get your second. My second is tomorrow. Can't wait to complete the process. And there are vaccination centers opened across the island today. We urge you to consider vaccinating yourself, getting your vaccination today. But time for us to turn our attention to pediatric care. And joining us is our favorite pediatrician in the whole wide world, Dr. Gillian Birchwood. Good morning to you, Dr. Birchwood.
Good morning, Pearson. What an introduction.
It is the truth, but welcome. It's always good to see you.
I'm glad to hear that you got your vaccines.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes, I mean, I'm protecting myself, but I'm also protecting others. And that's the whole responsible mood that we want people to have, that you are doing it not just for yourself, you're doing it for others as well, and particularly those who you love. Because and sometimes the defenseless, those little ones who are not yet eligible to receive the vaccine is absolutely critical. And you know my two boys, I have to be around them all the time. So for me, it is absolutely important that I protect them. They're not yet at the age to be receiving their vaccines.
Correct. Not just yourself, those you love too. Absolutely.
Indeed. So today we want to look at asthma. You know, as we said last week, there's a season for everything. There's a season for asthma?
Absolutely. Asthma definitely tends to peak in the later months of the year, and that's October, November, December. It correlates with a lot of the viral illnesses that tend to circulate around this time. Fortunately, what has happened, again, because of COVID, we haven't seen quite so many viral illnesses circulating, so we haven't seen quite so many children coming down with symptoms of asthma. But we know it's just a matter of time before it rears its very ugly head again. This is the time of year for it. So I want parents to be on the lookout for signs and symptoms so they'll know what to do.
It is a very ugly head indeed. So what is asthma?
Right, so asthma is an inflammatory condition. Basically, it means that there's inflammation and swelling. And so if you consider that the lungs are like an upside down tree, and the biggest area, which is the trachea, is like the trunk, it branches and branches and branches into smaller branches until eventually you get to the very tiniest airways. And you can see there in the picture on the left that a normal airway has an inner lining that you can see there that's yellow. And then the outer lining is muscle. So we have muscles even down into our airways. And in people who are wheezing, two main things are happening. You have swelling of that yellow lining, and you can see how it makes the airway much narrower.
Yes.
And at the same time, you get tightening of the muscle that's around the outside of the airways. So both situations combine to make a very narrow airway. And so when a child is breathing in and out through those narrowed airways, that's when you hear that whistling sound that is the wheezing that is so characteristic of asthma. So it's a lot of inflammation plus tightness in the chest that you get with asthma.
Is everyone pre-asthma?
No, fortunately not. So there are some people who are more likely to have it, and these are people who have a tendency to have allergies. So these would be people who have, for example, eczema, who have allergic rhinitis, which is, sinus problems in the nose, and who have a family history of asthma. These are the families where we'll be looking at the children more closely. So if you have eczema, if you have a family history of sinus problems or allergies, nasal allergies, or if you have a family history of asthma, those are the families where we're going to be most concerned about asthma. And Barbados has one of the highest incidence of asthma in the entire world. About 20% of about 6 to 7 year olds have asthma in Barbados, which is a tremendous number.
But why? Why is that so?
That is a great question. And so people have been trying to work this out, and it's not just Barbados, it's other countries in the Eastern Caribbean too that have quite a high incidence of asthma. And there are a number of factors, including the fact that we have a high prevalence of those conditions that I told you about with the eczema and so on. So we have a high tendency to have it in the first place. But there's a lot of thinking that perhaps the Sahara dust might be an environmental trigger that is much more significant in our region than in other parts of the world, for example, in the United States, where the incidence of asthma is a lot less. So it's definitely worrisome in this part of the world, the amount of asthma that we do have.
So there are people who develop symptoms of asthma, and later on we'll talk about the symptoms in just a minute. But can you prevent it? Can you prevent anyone from onsetting with asthma?
Well, unfortunately, it's impossible to completely prevent. We may know that you have a disposition for asthma, but something as simple as breastfeeding when you have a young child who's in a family at risk can actually help to reduce the incidence of asthma as the child grows up. But once there is that strong family history and the environmental factors come and play a role as well, it is impossible to say that I'm going to be able to do something to prevent you from developing asthma. But once you do have asthma, you can definitely prevent the child from having frequent attacks. And that is a cornerstone of treatment, is preventing the attacks, although we can't really prevent the asthma itself from developing in the child.
It gets scary when you don't even know this is what your child is experiencing. So what are some of the signs and symptoms so that when you see your child struggling for breath, that you are aware that it's not playing the fool, but it's a serious matter?
Yes, and a lot of times parents don't recognize the early warning signs that your child is probably asthmatic. And by the time they reach the stage where they're struggling for breath, they've really missed a lot of the signs that have been there for some time. So one of the cardinal signs of asthma is that cough. So the parents will describe it to you, they say, they have a cough, it's worse at night, they can't sleep, the cough wakes them up, or they develop a cough when they're excited and running around, as children tend to do. They're running around the house, they're laughing, and then you suddenly see them breaking into a cough that they can't seem to stop. So it's a cough that just goes on, and sometimes it will end up with them coughing and choking at the end of it.
Wow.
And they will comment that, when I'm playing at school, or when I'm doing sports at school and PE, and I'm running around, I have to stop and cough. So that is definitely one of the early warning signs that cough is probably not allergies. If it's triggered, in the middle of the night, you're running around, you're excited, you're playing sports, it's quite possible that cough is related to asthma. That is the earliest sign. And if that is ignored, then as time goes by, then the other symptoms start to develop as the asthma attack worsens and the inflammation in the airways gets more restrictive. That's when you'll start hearing wheezing, which can be quite loud sometimes. And that's when you start seeing the signs with the difficulty breathing. You see the neck tugging in at the base of the neck. You see the ribs sucking in. That really is a late sign that you've missed the boat with the wheezing. So we like to catch the children when they're having that cough that just doesn't seem to go away. That's the sign that you need to go to your doctor with and say, look, I need to understand why my child's having this cough all the time.
So then how do we treat it? Because we've heard some old wives' tale, take them to the sea, put them in some rough water, it'll knock it out of them, that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily the best form of treatment. So what are the forms of treatment we can have so we have a peace of mind with our children?
Right. So there are two mainstays of treatment. One is prevention, which is where we want to be. We don't want the child to have the asthmatic attack. And the second is I already have the attack, and this is the sort of treatment that I would use. So the prevention treatment, there are three big categories really. One is inhaled steroids. Now, when parents say steroids, they think of, athletes with chest hair and big muscles.
Yes.
This is not the same thing. These are inhaled, ideally, so that they will get into the lungs and directly to the area where the inflammation is. Remember that picture with the inflammation on the inner lining of the airways? The inhaled steroids are designed to reduce the inflammation there and really can be very effective at preventing flare-ups in the first place. The second type of treatment, for example, is like a medication that's called Montelukast sodium. They're different brand names, but what it does is it prevents the cells that trigger the inflammation from breaking down and causing the inflammation in the first place. And that's usually an oral medication. And then there are medications for when you actually are already having an attack, and that is when people use what they call the blue inhaler, which is a Ventolin inhaler. But that is when you are already having the asthmatic attack. And you can see there in the picture that there's a special delivery device, we call that a spacer device, and that's really important to help distribute the medication properly into the lungs. People make the mistake of just sticking the inhaler directly into their mouth. The medication just sprays to the back of the throat. You must have a spacer device. Some come with masks for younger children so that the medication can get where it's supposed to go. So it's really important to have the right medication not just to use the blue one when you're having the cough, because then you're not going to take care of the inflammation that's already there on the inside of the lungs. So it's really important to use a prevention inhaler, and then when you have an attack, you can then go on to the different types of inhalers that are responsible for that, and nebulizations as needed.
Prevention is always important, yes. So here we are now, and someone next door decides they're going to do some burning of trash. We know how it's going to impact on the airwaves of my child or someone in the house. And what now do we do when we see this child choking and grasping and gasping for breath?
Yes, that's something that is such a terrible habit that people have, burning trash. And I've seen lots of children who've been really badly affected by it, and they run down to the office or they run down to the hospital to get nebulized. So at the time when somebody's having a severe attack and you're seeing visible signs of struggling to breathe, you should not stay at home. At that point, the child definitely needs to be assessed by the doctor, and they may prescribe either nebulization treatment, or they may do an alternative, which is to use the blue inhaler, the Ventolin inhaler, and give multiple puffs of those. We've been doing that a lot more since COVID, because the nebulizer can generate what we call aerosols. So if somebody happened to have COVID and is wheezing, they will spray it all over the atmosphere. And so now we use the inhaler in the spacer device, and we may tell them to give 6 to 8 puffs, one after the next, and see how they feel. We might do that several times and see whether or not they're improving. But it's really important not to stay home, and especially don't be afraid now. Yes, we know that there's COVID, but we don't want children staying at home who are in trouble and then presenting at the hospital late. So it's really important. You notice the signs, the coughing is getting worse, you're starting to see the struggling breathing, you may need to be nebulized, or you may need to use the inhaler in a special way that will help to reduce the tightness in the chest and the problems they're experiencing.
What a relief, It's so scary. I can well imagine the trauma a parent goes through, or an adult, when you look at someone who you loved struggling to breathe, and then the panic. But once you know what to do and how to do, then it perhaps just relaxes you just a little bit. Now, can a child live a normal life with asthma?
Yes, and this is one of the myths that, that society and parents have. If I get that diagnosis, it means that my child can't have a normal life. It means that they can't play sports. And actually, I'm really glad to say that that's not true. So once the asthma is well managed, and you would discuss with your pediatrician or your doctor the asthma action plan, then definitely your child can have a normal life. So the asthma action plan looks at what to do for prevention, and what to do if you notice the warning signs, what to do if you're an athlete and you play sports, because you may need to take your inhalers beforehand. But there's certainly a lot that can be done, and some very, top tier athletes have asthma that is well managed. The key is to manage it well.
Goodness, we couldn't say that better. The key is to manage it well. Would exercise help, though? If you live a sedentary lifestyle, if you're a little plump and you're not as fit as you ought to be, would all of those also compound the management of asthma?
That's a great point, because sometimes people feel, if you're wheezing, you shouldn't exercise. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because when you are exercising, especially for children, you're helping to develop their airways, and their lungs continue to grow for quite a long time into early childhood. So you definitely want to maximize the amount of lung capacity that they have. And if they have asthma, that can only be beneficial to them. So once your asthma is well managed, then you certainly can engage in virtually any type of physical activity without restrictions. So that is definitely a key take-home message. Manage it well, and then you won't have any restrictions.
Sometimes we say, but as a child I never had asthma. All of a sudden, here it is. It presents itself later on in life. Is that because of environmental conditions, or would there be other factors that would lead to such a diagnosis?
You're right, because there seems to be an increasing incidence of asthma. When I was a little girl 2 years ago, there was hardly any asthma, or so it seemed. Now, it just seems that everybody has asthma. And again, it seems to be multifactorial. They think it could be around the world. This is a phenomenon, that there's perhaps increasing pollution that may be a contributor. And as people get older, what they label asthma may actually not be asthma. It might be COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. But that is definitely outside the realm of my specialty, since I deal only with kids. But yes, as adults get older, what they think is asthma may not be. So everyone that wheezes does not necessarily have asthma. There are lots of different things that can present with wheezing. And that's why it's important to go to your doctor, so you can tease that out and you can understand exactly what you're dealing with.
Right. So bottom line here is know what asthma is, understand the symptoms, check your pediatrician, your medical doctor, to know more about how to manage the asthma, get the right inhalers with the spacers so that you are able to distribute the medication properly through the system, the lung system, and just monitor the child from there, and have an action plan. Just have an action plan when it gets worse. If there's an attack, what to do and how to do it. I think it behooves, as the old people would say, all of us within the society and within the family to know what to do, so that it becomes part of our emergency plan should any of our loved ones begin to have that serious attack, that we can prevent death in some instances. Thank you so much, Dr. Birchwood. Thank you as always for joining us this Tuesday morning and sharing with us a whole lot more from your expertise and calming our spirits to know that it's okay, we can work our way through this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Pearson, and I hope your
Likewise.
vaccine goes smoothly.
Yes, it shall. Yes, it shall. I spoke it, so it shall be so. Thank you so much. Dr. Gillian Birchwood, our favorite pediatrician, here on a Tuesday morning with us. Remember, check it out. If you have someone in your family who is asthmatic, and you know this for a fact, don't take the precaution. Don't sit back. Take an action. Do something about it. We're coming right back after this with more on Morning Barbados. When it comes to questions on real estate, who do you call? Agent Sharita. So we're calling for Agent Sharita this morning. Agent Sharita, good morning to you.
Good morning. Here I am.
Ta-da! There she is. Now, I'll talk to my technical director, Roel. We need to have some smoke, poof. There she is. Right, there were all those effects. That's beautiful indeed. I like what we're going to be talking about today, because oftentimes we engage in real estate and there are terms that are used and it just goes over our heads and we assume that we understand it, so we pretend, and all the while we can walk ourselves into trouble.
So let's start off at the start of the transaction.
Right.
You should know what a buyer's agent is and what a listing agent is. I am a listing agent. So essentially persons give me their properties to either put on the market for sale or for rent. So that's all I do. I don't really go searching or hunting for you. You come to my online store, so to speak, and you pick up a house from the shelf, pack it in your trolley, and go along about your business. So that is me, the listing agent. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have buyer's agent. So if you wanted to hunt for something particular, you could go and tell them your preferred specifications, and they would actually look around and try to shortlist some options for you. So that's the difference between the two. And then there's some that do both roles.
You know, often we think real estate agent, we don't distinguish. We just figure, does the real estate work for me? So if I'm looking for something, call my real estate agent. Not necessarily I'm looking to my real estate agent to see what they have available. So I'm glad you're able to make that distinction for us. You know, there are agents who will go hunting for you, and then there are agents who you can come purchase from because they have what they have. And that's what's most important. Then there's pre-qualification and pre-approval. Two totally different things, even though they have the same prefix.
Correct. And those are two names that persons get a little bit mixed up. So pre-qualification is if you go to your financial institution and you get a sense of what you qualify for based on your current liabilities, debt, income, and so forth. So they may say within a 15-minute meeting after they've looked at your job letter and some other bills and so forth, you know what? You qualify to borrow up to $300,000. And we could probably work out something where you pay back over 30 years, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very generic guide, but the beauty of it, it helps you to know if you're house hunting, okay, my budget is about $300,000. However, pre-approval is different. Pre-approval now is where we dig up all into your business and find out what you are really eligible to borrow. Because you see, when you came in for that pre-qualification status, you may have hidden the fact that you just bought a car. You may have hidden the fact that your credit card debt is not just the one credit card you told us about, but four, totaling $40,000. So pre-approval now is more of a thorough investigation and digging up into your finances and then confirming based on all that we see as evidence, we are eligible to give you X.
Right. So with pre-approval, you know for sure X is the amount, and we can pre-approve it because we have checked you out, we know what it is, and we are prepared to extend to you credit of X amount. With pre-qualification, all I'm doing is just doing a basic check, look around your numbers and say, okay, you know, given everything that you've said, we think you could very well be qualified for whatever figure that figure would be.
Correct.
So,
before you go on, Pearson, I want to say this. Pre-qualification is a step that can take a while. So I usually recommend, pre-qualification can take a short time. You go in, you get a sense of what you have within 15, 20 minutes of a meeting. Pre-approval, however, takes longer. So you would find that pre-approved by your financial institution sometimes could take as long as 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And the seller is waiting to sell and move on. So it has helped out some persons who have pursued property before and it didn't work out. At least they had their pre-approval in place so that then when they found something else, they could strike quickly.
Indeed. Then there's the whole question of offer and counter offer. Not every offer is a counter offer, and not every counter offer is necessarily an offer.
All right, so an offer is something, Pearson, you see a house that you want to pursue, it costs $500,000, you have $480,000 in your pocket, you say, let me start playing a game of chess. I'm gonna make an offer of $460,000 and act like if that is all I have. The seller, on the other hand, they see their property as worth $500,000, so they may indicate to you by a counter offer that I am not budging much. So they may counter with $495,000. In other words, if you want my house, you need to get your coins up. And that game can go back and forth, you know, 1 or 2 times until they either meet in the middle or the purchaser realizes I just can't get up there.
So that's the difference. One, and then there's a counter offer to it, and then until we come to a conclusion, and then that's the final offer. That's when offer comes back into play. All right, good, got it there. And then there's under offer and under contract.
Correct. So under offer means I have accepted, we've reached an agreement, Pearson, on a figure of $480,000. So we deem that the property is now under offer. But you now have to go and try to get your financing in order. So you run to the bank with your little paper saying, look, she said she would accept my offer of $480,000. Can you hurry up and tell me if you can give me the money? Now, I, as the seller, being sensible and knowing that in these times you may take forever, I have had a clause on that offer letter saying, I am giving you 2 to 3 weeks to come up with the deposit,
Yes.
or at least get to the attorney stage or something like that, so that if you don't, I can pursue this cash buyer to my left who is knocking on my door violently. Under contract now means that as the seller, my attorney has prepared the sale agreement, sent it off to your attorney. Your attorney says everything is fine and requests the 10% deposit from you, and tells you to sign here, here, and here. Now we have a signed sale agreement, so the property is under contract and technically totally off the market. Cannot be sold to another person at this stage.
Yes. As is sounds as though, you know what, here it is, you either take it or leave it, as is. Would I be correct in my definition?
That is pretty much it. So you will find that applies to a lot of the properties that are probably slightly under market value, have some fixer-upper status going on. As is means, look, you are seeing it with a big hole in the roof, no electricity on, no tiles, and the foundation looks questionable. Do not ask me as the seller to do anything. If you want this house, I'm already giving it almost at a 40% discount. It is as it is. Now, here's the deal. At the time that the offer is made for the property, that is what is determined as is. That what you saw when you made that offer. Okay? I've had a situation recently where someone made an offer for an as-is property, and then Elsa happened. So when Elsa came now and ripped up the roof, and volcanic ash choked up the swimming pool, that was not the as-is status that it was seen when the offer was accepted. So the possibility is that either you could go back to you could go back to the vendor and renegotiate, or you could say, look, I don't want to pursue this anymore, and you're not penalized. Depending on the stage that it's at.
I got you. Due diligence, do your homework, check it out. Basically, that's what due diligence is, right?
And you're often given a little time period for that. And some persons might come back and say, look, we discovered a whole termite trail on the second floor. And yet again, they can choose to renegotiate or exit the deal. So always do your due diligence. And sometimes you're given a period of time to get that sorted.
All right, we don't have a lot of time to look at closing and closing costs. So very quickly, closing and closing costs.
Closing is the end of the sale when all the documents are signed, the bank is about to release its money, and you are getting your keys. And closing costs pretty much have to do with all that surrounds that. So insurance, land tax, real estate agent fees, anything outstanding tied to the closing up of the sale.
The deal. All right. Agent Sharita, as always, thank you for reporting, ma'am. We're over and out. We'll catch you again next week. God spare life indeed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Agent Sharita there looking at real estate with us. Now we're just about 12 minutes to go to the hour of 8 o'clock. We'll tease you a little bit about the upcoming launch of a very special project, a book looking at the project. You know what? Let me just have this gentleman talk to you a little bit about it. We're joined this morning by the Honored Justice Andrew Burgess, a judge at the Caribbean Court of Justice. Good morning to you, Justice Burgess.
Hello, good morning, Mr.
Bowen.
Pearson.
That's fine, that's fine. Could you briefly tell us what is the Caribbean Court of Justice and this Academy for Law?
Yes. The Caribbean Court of Justice is very well known to most Barbadians. I hear it based on the call-in program. But fundamentally, it is the highest court, appellate court for Barbados, and incidentally, Dominica and Belize, the other Caribbean countries having not yet. That's the appellate jurisdiction. It has a, which is the jurisdiction. So the Caribbean Court of Justice has replaced the Privy Council as the apex court in the territories. And as I said, it has an original jurisdiction dealing with matters concerning the Treaty of Chaguaramas. You'll remember the Mary case most Bajans will remember the heard in the original jurisdiction. Now, the Academy of Law, the Caribbean Academy of Law, is the educational arm of the CCJ. Now, making jurisprudence through case law is one thing. There are matters which the CCJ should involved in. And one of these matters is attempting to create a tradition whereby Caribbean people will know who are the leading
Out the connection we have with Justice Burgess right there, because we want to hear a little bit more about today's launch of this pioneering Caribbean women jurists project. Now take a look right there. This is what it is. Eminent Caribbean Jurist Series, a celebration of the contribution of 34 eminent women jurists to the development of our Caribbean society. It's launching today, the 12th of October at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time, and you can be a part of it as well. How can you be a part of it? That's what I want to find out as well. So there's a book launch. This book chronicles the contribution of 34 eminent women jurists in the development of our Caribbean history, and there are quite a few. And we can learn a little bit more once we turn the pages of this book, who they are and what are their contributions as well. And so, because of time, we're out of it, and we had hoped, we'll try to get him back another time, Justice Burgess, to talk a little bit more about that project. We're taking a break and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.
Do I come over?
Good morning to you.
We have 7 minutes now to go to 8 o'clock. That's more than enough time for us to get fitter than a fiddle this morning. Joining us, as always, is our guy, Mr. Thornwood, Mr. Califit 246. Good morning, Thorn.
Good morning, Pearson. Good morning, Barbados.
We can do this.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Within the time frame that we have, right? Correct. Good. So this morning, you're not going to be exercising today.
You got me looking so
fat. You're not going to be exercising today, fortunately. This morning, I just want to talk a little bit about the stuff that we see on social media where exercise is concerned. I know there's a lot of information. There's so many things people are doing. So let's work backwards a little bit, right? Most people that you're going to see on social media, those who are trying to give you those exercises. A lot of girls want to get abs. They want to build bigger legs, bigger behind, and stuff like that. You need to fact check a lot of this information. Most of these people that you're seeing online, some of them work hard, a lot of them have just really, really good genetics, and they do exercises that more or less accentuate their body parts. So if like for instance, if you have a girl doing or a man doing a adult row, they're telling you, how to get a bigger back, and they're telling you, maybe do 100 of these and stuff like that. And you may or may not be ready for that. So I just want you guys to, take your time where that stuff is concerned, and seek a professional. Call us, call anybody that you know within the fitness realm that can give you sound information.
Yeah, there's no cooker cutting. What's the word?
Cookie cutter.
One size fits all regime. Thank you. That's why I wanted to go.
Exactly. There's definitely
that's
not.
the whole point.
Yeah, there's definitely not a one size fits all regime when it comes to fitness.
And that's why it's important to have your personal fitness training session with you.
Correct.
And level up.
Yeah. Level up. We'll get to that yet, but we can talk about that. We got 5 minutes.
Yes,
we
do.
So the next thing, let's talk about diet where that's concerned. So many diets are online. So many are doing these things. I've seen something called a lemon water diet.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
Guys, no, please no.
Why not?
Please no. Like you're not getting any nutrients from lemon water.
Why not?
Like your body needs nutrients in order to function. You're like, think about it this way, right? You're not gonna go to the gas station, right? And pour water in your tank.
Nor kerosene.
Or kerosene.
Right.
Right? You're not gonna pour those type of things. You're not gonna put diesel into your gas tank. You need to put the necessary fuel into your vehicle so that it can operate efficiently.
But a lot of people drink this lemon water not
hold
for
on.
fuel.
No, I mean those who are doing it just for weight loss. So you have some people who are just drinking the lemon water by itself and not consuming any food. That's no.
Right, okay.
That's a definite.
I got you now.
Some people drinking on morning, so kind of like balance pH levels and stuff like that along with their diet. That's fine. Not everyone has to do that, but like I said, do your research, seek a professional, ask a question, find out what is good for your body. Because what might work for Pearson might not work for me,
Definitely
and vice
not.
versa. All right, there will be some similarities for in terms of like muscle building and stuff like that, and in terms of like building up strength. There will be some similarities across the board. However, do your research with that concern.
Right. Makes sense.
Seek a
Tremendous
professional.
amount of sense. And the professional is Califit 246, and the professional is Level Up.
Good, exactly. So now getting back to this last week, we missed this. We touched this just a smidgen of how you guys can come and get these prizes. So again, we are doing 2 1-month memberships, 2 2-week memberships, 2 shirts, and 5-day passes. Now, guys, all you have to do, follow Califit 246, follow Level Up Barbados, come down to the gym, approach me or any of the other trainers and say, look, are you ready for the challenge? I here.
Turn up.
To win a membership. I here to work out and get this stuff done. So you have your wall ball challenge, you have your row challenge, you have your ski challenge. We have a burpee challenge going on, push up. Pearson, I know you can come and smash the burpees. We did that one especially for you. So on top of that, because we're just thinking about giving back. COVID's been hard. A lot of people have been, at home, and we're now getting back into some sense of normalcy. Big up for 60% of people getting vaccinated and stuff like that. We're working our way up. So on top of that, we're taking on 2 persons, 1 male, 1 female, for a full transformation. We're talking 6 to 8 weeks. Get your diet on, get your training on. Look good for the new year.
Great. So it's as simple, folks, as following Califit 246. Or Level Up Barbados.
And showing up at the gym. Just
show up at the gym. And the gym is?
Right behind Lion Grove, Whole Town. You cannot miss it. You go to the car park at the back, make the left. All the signage is there. It's a beautiful open area. And you just come into the gym, say, look, Thorn, I want to win all these prizes.
Do with me what you will.
Don't look for nobody else. Like, give me these passes, give me the gym membership, and I shall have all.
That's the whole point. Folks, it's an affordable way for you to really make that transformation we've been talking about over the weeks. In the midst of this pandemic, we're losing our fitness in lots of cases, and one way to regain it is with this campaign as well. So remember, follow Califit 246 or Level Up Barbados on social. And in doing so, go down to the gym. It's at the back of Lion Grove. Follow all the signage and you'll get there. Thorn is going to be there. He and the other fitness trainers.
I'm there from Monday to Saturday, guys. I live at the gym.
So there you go. He lives at the gym. So let's take up this opportunity, folks, and really gain from it as well. We got to go, Thorn.
Most definitely. I'm glad to share this information, guys. I look forward to seeing you down the gym. Pearson, you too. You got to come down and do a challenge, man.
Nadia and I will follow you down there.
I know Nadia. I believe in Nadia. 100%.
Yeah, me too. So I will follow Nadia down there one day very soon, join with you in the team.
Most definitely.
All right, so folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for keeping the company with us. We look forward for Nadia Foster, Rowell Ford, Christopher Blemon, the little small team of us. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning. Until then, take care.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.